Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Richard Grannon and Friends, a particularly momentous episode, given recent events. For those of you who are not from the UK, there was an incident recently where there was a stabbing of some schoolgirls. Jacob, if you could pull that story up so we can just show how it was reported and what we know. This is from 6 days ago. On Al Jazeera, the stabbing took place in Southport. There's a 17-year-old suspect who's in custody. I think so far 3 of the girls who were stabbed have died, and several are still in critical condition. The response to this has been what have been some peaceful protests and then some not peaceful rioting, and this has taken place across the whole of the UK. If you could show us some of the footage from Liverpool, please, Jacob. So there's been chaos has kicked off across different areas of Liverpool. And in other places as well, there's been rioting, there's been shops damaged, the police have been attacked. We've got footage as well from other areas of the country here. There's also, it went off in Hull, Bristol and Stoke. So, as ever, as we discuss on this channel, the way the narrative has been spun of the incident is not necessarily reflective of the reality of what has happened, and the map here is not matching the territory. So the purpose of this conversation today is to try and bring a little bit of truth, sanity, reason, and unity back to the conversation. So the purpose of this is to have a dialectic. Everybody's perspective and understanding is going to be explored, and hopefully through that we can create some kind of a synthesis. So gentlemen, if I could just ask you first to give a brief introduction of yourselves. You first, please, sir.
Yeah, I'm Abdullah from Toxteth.
My name's Adam Kelwick. I'm involved with Britain's first mosque. It's the Abdullah Quilliam Mosque, and I'm one of the imams at that mosque.
Tony.
My name's Tony Moran. I've been active in Liverpool communities for around 30 years, which is my background, in a multitude of different ways, and that's what I'd like to represent today.
My name's Sy Egan. I'm originally from London, but I've been in Liverpool now for 6 years. And my background is working with young adults with mental health issues or learning difficulties, or from underprivileged backgrounds.
My name's Mark Scanlon. I'm a local businessman and I'm involved in some different things in the community. And I run a programme in the schools called the I Am Project, working with teenagers in the Liverpool schools.
So I've stated what the purpose of the conversation is. I'd just like to get some initial reflections from all of you. When you first heard of the incident, what was your first response? What were you worried about? What were you concerned about happening? Brother?
Well, when it first happened, you get that sunken feeling like it's not another, what the media's portrayed, it's going to be a Muslim attack, or it's going to be, that community. But the biggest problem is this misinformation, within the media. So when you get 10 seconds clips, whether it's on TikTok or whether it's on these other social platforms, you're not getting the full story. So originally when we got told he was a Syrian boy from Syria, and then my heart sunk because I knew what was coming after it. But as it went along, the story got cleared up, but the incidents carried on went ahead. The incidents went ahead, and we've seen what we've seen in the last couple of days.
It sort of carried its own momentum, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Despite the truth.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
You, sir?
Yeah, so I think just watching back to when it first happened, there was a lot of confusion at the beginning, and there were just reports, and these reports were coming from different directions, and you didn't really know what had happened and what had gone on. And then it emerged shortly after that 2 girls were killed, and then the third one was announced. I think it was the day after, and I just remember my heart was shredded to pieces. My 14-year-old daughter, she came up to me and she said, "Dad, who's done that?" And I said, I don't know. And then she asked me the other question, which affected me a lot more, and I was talking about this before. She said, "Why has he done it?" And I just remember feeling so small and so weak as a father, not being able to answer my 14-year-old daughter and her question. And I just said, I don't know. And it's almost like the issue or the hurt, what had been created in our house, it wasn't solved because I didn't have the answer.
Yeah.
And then since then, what happened, like many a time when we see a terrorist attack or an extremist attack, a lot of people don't really understand this, but it's like the Muslim community. We get two punches. It's like the whole country gets a punch first of all when it happens. So we feel the first punch, and then we get a second punch because fingers start being pointed at us now, and somehow people feel that we're to blame. But as Abdullahi mentioned, that it emerged later that these rumors of it being a Syrian refugee who recently came over on a boat, that was all false. But one thing I do think about that is even if the guy who did it was a Muslim or part of the Muslim religion, that's still not justification to go and attack a mosque in Southport. If it turns out that he's Christian, do you go and attack a church? Of course you don't. That's ridiculous. So yeah, personally I was impacted, my family was impacted, and I know my community was impacted. Just the fact that it's down the road from here.
Yeah.
That Southport is a place where I take my kids often. My little girl plays in the park, next to the little fun fair and the arcades, and we go to the beach, and it was very, very close to home, and still a lot of unanswered questions.
For people who don't know the area or you're not from the UK, so Southport is a place where people from the Northwest would go for a day out. It's where you go to the beach. It's where you go to the fun fair. Interesting point of reflection psychologically there. That sense of impotence and fear is often what can drive violence because you have to compensate for that. You want to be able to protect your children. It's a very, very visceral response. And everyone has it. It doesn't matter what religion you're from. If you have a family, you want to be able to protect your children. So that initial response is the same, I would claim, that everyone feels. You have the initial emotional response, and then you try and put a map on it. You go, okay, how do I compensate for this negative feeling? And that's when people start finding victims. That's the dangerous moment. My thing with all of this, when I first heard of the stabbing, was a sinking feeling, because I'm very, very frightened that this country is going to swing hard right in a very extremist way, and that inside of my lifetime, we can see the same things that have happened in other countries historically, like Germany, as it was in Yugoslavia, people being put on buses, people being stopped in the street and asked what their family name is to try and decide what their background is, and even internment camps. It's not impossible. It didn't happen that long ago before. It can happen again. I went on there a bit, Tony, but then I tend to. Over to you, sir. What was your initial response?
First instinct was a concerned parents, because we're very close to home, as we just mentioned. As a father, I think a parent's first instinct is to place their own child in that position. And I believe that my first sort of feelings on it were, how's it gonna impact the world around us in terms of our own communities, our local communities, because I think we can look too far out into the world about what's happening, and we fail to focus on what's going on in our own communities with our own people. The separation that can cause incidents like this, horrific incidents, but why it would separate the friends around this table, who are all my friends, that wouldn't be the case. There would be no separation for me between the friendship and the people I know and care for, and know their hearts and their own positions as men and family men and parents. So it's just, it can cause a lot of confused feelings, I suppose. But I know my heart, and I know the people around me, and I know what their hearts speak about. And it can confuse you, but at the same time, you've got to take stock of the true sort of evil essence of things at times, and try and figure out where this drive is coming from in people to commit such evil acts. And I think the answers are far and reaching. And I don't think we're going to answer them at this table today, but maybe I'm going a bit too much now, but
I should say at this point, we have to credit Tony with organising this. Tony has asked me to do this, and he organised it and set it up. But we do all know each other. Obviously, I worked the door with Tony. Tony's taught me martial arts for years. We've worked the door together. You've definitely punched me in the face in boxing a couple of times. So there is a community here, and it's not a bunch of far-right thugs. So when you see that reported in the media, oh, up north, there's a bunch of far-right thugs kicking off. No, there's a community of people from different backgrounds, different religions, and it's not the narrative you're going to get in the media is everything is very, very divided. That's a lie. That's not true. People are living happily alongside each other and have been, as far as I know, in Liverpool for centuries. It's been a port town for centuries, and yes, there is division. Yes, there is tension at times, but don't fall for this narrative that it's just a bunch of dumb northerners kicking off because they don't understand what's going on. What was your first response, sir, when you heard the news?
I mean, it was just shocked, really. I mean, there's been certain languages which have sort of maybe enabled certain views to be aired more freely than previously, but you know, this is something that's gone on over an extended period of years.
Yeah.
You know, so when what's taken place now has taken place. My main concern was if it's taken this long to get to this point, how long is it going to take us now to rectify it and get back to where we want to be?
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of the views that are coming out now. There's some concerns, some valid concerns.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's the narrative. It's framing these problems based against race or religion, which is not the case at all.
Yeah.
You know, having spoke to some other members of my family, I mean, for me personally, I grew up in a multicultural environment. You know, so I've been lucky enough to not really.
Where are you from?
So I was born in Brighton, but I grew up in London.
Right.
My dad's Irish, my mum's Ghanaian.
Where in London?
I was in North, Stoke Newington. So. But yeah, just I mean, having chats with sort of older members of my family who've experienced, you know, racism or some sort of prejudice, you know, they're recognising that this is a very, very troublesome time that we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
Again, I have a twin sister. She moved out of London. She didn't want to raise her kid in Hackney because of certain other, you know, problems with gang violence and things like this. But yeah, you know, it's extremely upsetting, and it's just like I feel like this is going to take quite a long time to get back on the right tracks.
Mark, what was your first response, mate?
It was pretty similar to Adam's daughters, to be honest. It's how and why could something like this even happen? It took me a couple of days to kind of wrap my head around how people even doing, you know, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, how can a human being fucking commit something so it's fucking kids. I've got a daughter who's 8 and I take her to dance and my wife takes her to dance, so the initial thought was like, wow, that could happen at my own daughter's dance school.
Yep.
You know, and if I'm truthful, it's in the middle of Old Swan, it's in the middle of Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's fucking ethnicities and different races, and you know, it's Old Swan. You know, Abdullah, anyone who's from Liverpool knows, you know. And I've sat outside the dance and, you know, to pick her up or to drop her off, and there's black men, there's Asians, there's Chinese, there's all people outside. And, you know, if I was to sit here and say I was going to be outside of a dance school and I wouldn't look at people and be fearful myself over, no, that doesn't make you racist. But now I feel like everyone's on high alert.
Yeah.
Everyone's emotions are all over the place. Everyone's asking questions. And I'm seeing that because I'm in the schools and I'm amongst the kids. And the last thing these kids need now is community centres closing, different activities over the summer holidays now. I spoke to a friend on the way here. He gets 20, 30 people in stuff where he's doing in the community. 8 kids are showing up because they're scared. And I think, you know, there's so many different ways we can look at this. There's so many different issues, but at a time when our kids, which are our future, they need to be doing these activities, need to be doing these things. They're not.
Yeah.
And for me, that's, you know, there's so to try and think about and actually digest and understand. But for me, that's the big thing. Our kids need community. That the biggest problem we're facing, the lack of community and stuff, the lack of connection. You know, they need it more now than ever. And I think that right now, that's, you know, with everything else what's going on for me, it's always about the kids, and that's the thing which worries me the most.
Yeah. I think sometimes when I'm looking at this, I try to think, well, instead of like, what do you think about it? I try and go upstream of that, and I think, what's the right way to think about this? What is the dividing line here? Because if you say, quite frankly, if you say, oh, it's Christians versus Muslims, that's pretty stupid, because which Muslims, which Christians, who are we talking about? If it's white versus Southeast Asian, again, that's a very, very large, broad group. Why do things like this happen? No matter what name it's done in, you have to assume the person is mentally ill. To take a blade and do what he did, he has to be somewhere on the spectrum for psychopathy. So maybe the dividing line on all of these issues would be saying, well, maybe it's psychopaths versus humans, because there is extremism. There are right-wing thugs. There are Islamic extremists, but are they fundamentally psychopaths who then just take on a narrative because they already want to do violence? What do you think of that interpretation, Abdullah?
I think you're going to get a scumbag whichever part of this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that individual who went in there, no one's going to condone what he done. And the Muslim community won't condone it, and neither would the other part. Nobody's going to condone it. It doesn't matter what you are or what background you come from. A scumbag is going to be a scumbag.
Yeah.
And what he done was horrendous. Do you know what I mean? I just want to send my condolences to the families, because you can't believe what they're going through right now. And no one's thinking about the families, rather going out and, you know, arguing amongst each other.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a certain level of respect for the family. So
Yeah.
I think you're just going to get scumbags no matter where
No,
in the world you are.
That's a good point. You say?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, you know, when we were going around and describing how we felt after the Southport attack. And like, if we felt this weak or hurt, or then just how do you even start to empathize with the families of the children? Like, literally, their girls went to a dance summer club. They might have been to work, and then they come. What do you do when you're in your regular job and you get that phone call?
Yeah.
I just think it's really powerful. And then after that, the people of Southport, because the first reaction straight after that, wasn't it? It was the first of the riots, protests, well, whatever you want to call them. But people set on a mosque in Southport, and it was attacked. The police were attacked. There was a lot of anger, and it's like, so the families and the people of Southport, first of all, they haven't even dealt with that. They still won't have dealt with it now with the tragedy. It's going to take a long time to heal from that. But like, literally within 2 days, they had this other crisis on their doorsteps, and all chaos was breaking out. And
they attacked a mosque without knowing whether he was even Muslim. And it wouldn't justify attacking a mosque anyway.
Exactly.
But he's from Rwanda, and I was told yesterday his surname is a Christian surname. It's not a Muslim surname.
Yeah.
So the mosque is...
That's the expectation, is the likelihood is he is going to turn out to be a Christian. But then again, as a Muslim, I'd say, well, what? I don't think he's a representative of Christianity. Just in the same way that when someone blows themselves on the underground in London, I don't think that person's a representative of the Islamic faith. If anything, they're very, very far from it. But it's just really sad. And I think at the end of the day, I'd like to know, to be honest, because I know a lot of people were there who went on the protest, and they went out of rage and anger and fear and all these different emotions. And I liked your take when you were talking about the psychology of that. I think that's really interesting. But I wonder now, in retrospect, do any of the people who took part in that initial protest outside the mosque in Southport, which has really set the domino effect off for everything else we're seeing, do they, in retrospect, maybe wish they hadn't have done that? Or what do you think?
I think that's an interesting point. What bothers me with the environment that we're living in now So if you look at like the French Revolution, or you look at the witch trials that went on in medieval Europe, and the rise in Nazi Germany and the revolution that took place in Russia, when you have decades of deprivation, when, I don't know, the weather's bad, the crops don't grow, people are hungry, they don't have enough money, and then there is one incident that appeals to that wretchedness, that resentment, that sense of like injustice, it's human nature. They pack up and then they find a common enemy. It's an adaptive response because we evolved in low resource environments. So of course we're built for war. We're built for chaos and stress. But in civilized society, it's a maladaptive response. You're like, who's attacking us? It's them. Okay, let's smash the mosque up. And you think, hang on a second. The gap between the stimulus and the response is too short. That's not a civilized way to respond. Like you, I have empathy for the people who responded that way. But I think we've got to teach people, just, it's awful, but sit still, think. Just think, wait for more data to come through. We don't really know what's happened here and we don't know why. So you've got to put more space between that stimulus and that initial sort of rage response.
Sorry, but that's where the social media gets involved.
Yeah.
Because within not even an hour of the incident, there was misinformation going out there. And when you're angry, because you're going to be emotional, there's 3 innocent kids who've just been killed. Your initial anger is going to be, you're already wound up. You get this misinformation, you're going to act, you know what I mean? And I think the social media is the biggest problem in this case because it just went
I can
so
actually
quick.
answer that question for Adam. 100%, yeah, because I speak to people in Liverpool and there was people messaging me, asking me to attend the protest the next day. The same people who were pushing me and even putting, like, I've got other friends who are putting us under pressure because we have got a platform to say, you've got a platform, use it, get people there today. Now, I made the decision myself, obviously it's far too soon. And then I was observing the people who were, in a sense, trying to put us under pressure, people with platforms, other friends of mine who we had the conversation between us to actually do something the next day. And I'm fully aware it was out of anger, it was out of rage. There was a WhatsApp group, apparently with over 1,000 people in, men from the city, basically all fueling each other out of anger. So I'm not surprised that what happened that night happened because the people genuinely weather deal. A lot of them will actually own it. They went there with the intentions to riot. That's why they went there. And there was people from out of town. This is the truth. There was people from out of town, from Manchester, from other areas, who came there to cause a riot. And a lot of them were the ones who initially attacked the mosque.
Yeah.
This is in Southport you're talking about?
This is in Southport, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of lads were from out of town.
But I think if we're
you could hear
honest
in the
as well,
videos.
I had
7
Liverpool
exits
friends
as
who
well.
went and they said there was lads there who we'd never seen before with masks on, and they attacked the mosque, and there was fueled up Scousers who fucking joined in.
But if you're honest and you look at their intentions and their motivations, they thought and they believed that the perpetrators of that attack had something to do with this building and with this community and this kind of
They linked the two.
this, you know, this knee-jerk response was they wanted to sort out the problem. They saw evil being committed and they wanted to sort it out. Now, what's happened in between is that that's actually been based on misinformation and ignorance. For many people, I think they abused the event, what happened in Southport, the tragedy. And I think they saw it and they dragged it into a narrative which they've been pushing for a very, very, very long time. And they pushed it. Yep, it was the Muslims. Get them.
You're being very kind and very even-handed, and I appreciate that. But I do. My perspective on it is that's a self-indulgence to do that and to come to somebody else's place. I think these are people who they thrive on it. They get something out of it. They get, they want the chaos. They want the violence. It's a psychopathic intent. I'm sure that you're right that a good number of people they're just acting out and it's ignorance. But some people, it's malice, isn't it?
It always is going to be. You're always going to get a percentage of people who go there with evil intentions.
Yeah.
And they do play on the fact that there's other people who are angry and emotional. But we're seeing that right the way through this whole thing now. We went to a protest Saturday, which was labelled a peaceful protest, Save the Kids. And there was a percentage of people there who'd gone there with the wrong intentions, thinking that violence is the solution. And we actually spoke to them on the day. We got people to take the masks off. We were speaking to you before, wasn't he? We looked them in the eye and said, what are you here for? What are you actually here for? And the same people didn't respond with violence because it was relatable, normal men.
Yeah.
Speaking to them and trying to talk sense into them.
This is the thing. It's like, for your experience then when you're actually with people face to face and you're getting a much better reaction, to sort of echo on from and to carry on from what you were saying, obviously that there was this misinformation that came out, and then you know these attacks happened. I've noticed online myself personally, even when these people, who've formed these opinions based on misinformation, are then given the correct information, i.e., this isn't what happened, it's ignored, and there's this cognitive dissonance. They don't want to take this information on, and this is the problem. This is what's happening online, where when you're out in the community and you can speak to people face to face, and have conversations like we're having today. It's much easier to sort of find some sort of common ground and some sort of...
It's better when you can look at humans. When it's there's been psychology research on this. If something is written versus something being spoken, the written word has more assumed aggression than when it's spoken to you. So it's literally a sentence, if it's written down, people take it the wrong way.
Like a text message.
Hey,
text message.
With your bird. Now you've had that. We've all had that. That doesn't mean that, love. Yeah. And then you have absolute chaos. So we know it happens. I mean, I had this, you talk about online trolls, because I spoke about this on a podcast the other day, and somebody said, well, Islam is fundamentally a violent religion, and it encourages this behavior. I said, can you show me where in the Quran, the Hadith or the Surah, it says knifing kids is okay? Please educate me, a wise one. And he was like, you're just a scouser with a YouTube channel. Blah, blah, blah. And then it's not about, you see the intention is not what they claim it is. They're claiming they want justice, they want fairness, they want chaos. I think like one of the things I'd like to have a conversation about, and we'll have to come back and probably talk about this again, is we have to face up to the fact that there is real evil in the world. There's really bad people of really, really nasty intent.
At what level, though? At the highest levels, I believe. And I believe they dictate that evil.
Okay.
And I believe that seeps down into the masses.
Well, you were going to say something earlier as well. I could feel it inside of you.
So I think, we're focusing a lot on Southport, but I think that was like a dramatic explosion, the symptom of people's feelings, latent feelings, feelings that people don't want to express because they feel like they're going to get labelled. I worked in the homeless service for 25 years in Liverpool. Worked in the asylum, didn't work in the asylum team, but I worked with a lot of what was termed asylum seekers at the time. People who were fleeing from real violence in the countries, places like Afghanistan, Syria, places in Africa, the Congo. Now, at the time, people were properly vetted. There was proper investigations that took place into a person's background, why a person was arriving in the UK, what the needs were, how they could best be served. And it was a proper vetted and a proper organised system, as far as I could tell at the time. People seemed to be very accepting of the fact that people were fleeing from some very violent situation. That might still be the case now, but the problem now is for the general population of all races and all religions who are UK citizens, is that they might feel that this country is just becoming overwhelmed. And there's feelings of like people are struggling on a daily basis with the basics. People are struggling with the basics. And then there's whether it's media spun or whether it's true, I don't know, because I'm not there to say whether it's true or not. But this is the awareness that people have. They feel like people can just come into the country unannounced. What they term illegal immigration, I don't know if that's even a term anymore. But people aren't being properly vetted. The people could be coming in with bad intentions. And I believe we've got the right as UK citizens of all races and all religions to not be opposed to it, but to have a real conversation and a real disagreement.
You can't do that. That's for racists.
If we feel, I disagree with it. Yeah. I don't disagree with immigration. I disagree with mass immigration that's unvetted and unchecked.
It's a critical
as
point.
A lot of people do.
Well, that's so as I always look at the incident and then you go, what's the context? What's the economy doing? What are people worried about? What are they frustrated with? And you've raised a really good point. When it comes to the mass immigration crisis. What do you think about that? What do you think about people coming in illegally into the country? How do you feel about that, Abdullah?
Well, it affects all, like Tom said, it affects all the communities. So it affects the Muslim community too. You know, it makes out that it affects the non-Muslims, but it does affect the Muslim community because we want our places safe and in a safe environment so we can all live together. But it doesn't work out like that. That's not the real world.
So are you saying that Muslims don't like criminals? Is that what you're saying? This is news. Honestly, I have to explain this to people.
Yeah.
Like they'll go, no, well, they'll just team up because they're Muslims. And I'm like, hey, do you know any Muslims? Who is this Muslim you're carrying in your head?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the problem, because I think a lot of people that are around Muslims and grew up with Muslims understand Muslims.
Yeah.
If you're away from the city and you don't live with Muslims, then it's the fear of. Like, I remember a time when the civil war happened in Somalia, and there were Somalis coming into the country, and because people didn't know anything about it, it was sort of like we weren't even classed as black at that time. They're like Somalis and black, and then when you integrate into the community, and you get to know them, then they're all right. Then there was the Kurdish community. Then when they become barbers and everything and got into the community, they're all right then. So there's always somebody coming in, and there's always a problem with somebody. They will always find a problem with somebody.
What do you think about the mass immigration crisis?
So there's theory, and then there's reality.
Right.
So in theory, and this might be an unpopular stance to take, but the Quran teaches me that when somebody seeks refuge with you, you look after them and you give them that refuge, and you even prefer them over your own self. Now, I know that's very, very difficult to implement. I also know the Bible teaches something very similar as well in terms of how you deal with the stranger and how you look after them. So they're the religious teachings which some of us claim to follow. Whether we do or not, that's a different question, isn't it? But I think there are definitely, without any shadow of there are challenges with immigration. So the Muslim community, for example, let's just use Liverpool. So the first Muslim community in this country were actually white British Scousers. That was back in Victorian times. So the original community, they were part of Abdullah Williams' community. And the irony is, the people who were protesting outside the mosque, the first Muslim community in that mosque will have looked more like them than the people who pray inside today. So that was the first community back in the late 1800s. Then in the 40s, 50s, 60s, then what you've got is Yemenis settling in Liverpool. And that's because a lot of them were working in the merchant navy, and they'd arrive in the docks and they'd settle, and they were part of the British Empire. Aden in the south of Yemen was a British protectorate. So anybody who was born in Aden in South Yemen was automatically a British citizen. Even when they lived there, they had British passports. And so some of them decided to come over and work in the steel factories and work in, and all the rest of it. But the point I'm trying to make is, as a Muslim community, it's very difficult to stabilize and establish who we are, because every few years we have a new wave of people coming in. So after the Yemenis, we had trickles of Pakistanis and Bengalis, then we had the Somalis, then the Kurds. More recently, we've had the Syrians and the Iraqis, and it's really difficult when you're trying to build a community. Imagine you're having waves. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think these people bring a lot of beautiful things with them as well. I'm not saying there aren't criminals amongst them, but I'm saying the food, the culture, we're learning all the time from each other. But it's really difficult to kind of establish as a community when you're having these constant changes and constant, for example, constant people coming in who speak different languages, and it can be testing. But I think ultimately, there is beauty in it, and there is contribution, because don't forget, I hear many people saying, well, I can't get a GP appointment, I can't get a dentist appointment because of all these people coming in. Well, actually, the chances are the doctor or the dentist you're going to see is either one of those people who came in or the second or third generation from those people. So it swings and roundabouts. And but going back to the theory as well, and this is the ideal, we would be in an ideal situation where any immigration, what happens in a way which is healthy, and people aren't feeling threatened and like their lives are being taken away.
Wouldn't that be solved just by insisting that it's legal? You say
Transparency,
it has to be
fairness.
legal.
That's
Yeah.
all. That's all.
You could
I think
insist
people only
it's.
want fairness.
But the thing is
feeling
with
of
illegal,
fairness.
I'm not defending illegal immigration, but how do you control it? How do you control it? Like even this plan to send them over to Africa, and I saw it, and it's just like a.
I think from the general public's point of view, the government's failing them, it's failing British citizens. And like we were speaking again, even before we came here, it's like the government's not doing what it's doing for people who've lived here their whole lives and generations before. Then it's allowing people to come in illegally and it's not managing it correctly. Like I'm fucking Irish. So it's like, my granddad came here at one point, that's the only reason why I'm sitting here today.
All from multicultural backgrounds, aren't
Of
we?
course, yeah, Liverpool more
Exactly.
Exactly.
most
And
places
no,
in the
this is the
country.
point as well. I think Liverpool is very, very different to most other parts of the country. I think it's easier for people to mix and kind of like even for example, the terrorism thing.
Yeah.
As a Muslim, I've always found people in Liverpool, and because of the Irish connection, they've been through exactly what we've been through. Terrorism and fingers pointing and don't trust them and all the rest of it. So I think Liverpool is quite
But
unique.
we're seeing normal everyday working families, not just families who live in deprived areas now because of inflation and all these other factors. Normal people are struggling to pay the bills, and then if you're in their shoes and then you're watching how the government's dispersing its funds and all these different things, then it's got to be managed.
Sorry, Mark, do you know, like, if you're saying it, they're illegal immigrants, how are they getting work? They're not.
They're not getting work.
Yeah, so when you're saying illegal immigrants, they're not getting normal jobs.
I think the question is, how are they even getting here in the first place?
Yeah, but even when
and
they're
and
here.
not just that, the approach to when they are here.
Are you saying that if they're here illegally, then they have to be criminals?
when they're saying, they're taking our jobs, for example,
Yeah.
how can they take your jobs? They can't get a job if they're illegal.
I don't really mean it as much as people say, look, you know me, brother.
Yeah.
I've immersed myself in cultures throughout my entire life, and I've been warmed on. I've grown from the people I've interacted with my entire life.
You'll even be friends with someone from the Wirral.
I'm from Kenny. My first interaction as a young man was a Yemenese boy who became my closest friend at the time. I was 8. So I'm not trying to put it out there that I'm a man of like multicultural background, but all I'm trying to say to you is that in this country there's only so much weight it can take in terms of populace, in terms of demand on resources. I just think people are generally just tired of feeling like they're not being listened to.
But
No matter what your background is, if you're a citizen of this country, you should have the right to speak about how much weight we can take and how much demand on our resources we can accept before it just breaks. The system just breaks, because it will. The infrastructure can only take so much weight.
do you know where this
before-
started?
So the beauty of all our cultures interacting, that is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, we've all got to be honest as separate cultures and agree, in my opinion, that there's only so much influx we can take, no matter how much goodwill we have as humans towards other humans. There's only so much that we can do.
No, that's true.
We can't solve the world's problems in a small island.
But all of this started with the Brexit and how they were going to stop immigration and how the borders are going to be closed, and they basically fueled the country. Everyone voted for it. As soon as they got what they wanted, no borders were closed. None of this stopped. Do you know what I mean? But they put the fear in people, making them fear that all people are coming from everywhere and this happening. And this is the after effect of what's going on
From
from the Brexit, yeah.
But this is what happens, It's just like you got a big bust there, £100 million a week or whatever it was they were saying. Everybody's like, well, that sounds
350.
great. And everybody, look what's happened
What was that, sorry?
with Brexit. It's
What was
like
the big lie on the bus?
It was like £100 million a week going into
350.
350 million. All right. So this is how they got everybody's interest. Everyone's looking at this. Well, that's no good. And without looking at the rest of the implications of what's going to happen. And it's the same here, this is what's like breeding this hateful rhetoric again. It's like there's no separation at the moment between sort of disagreements in policy with race right now, which is what's going on. And I'm sure, obviously there's going to be sort of effects on like public services like healthcare, education, this, that, and the other. But we're not looking at the source. Like the governments, the people in charge, these are the people that have created the problem. And people weren't listened to. The government didn't listen to what people were saying. So now people are attacking the outcome.
Right. That's an interesting point. Mark, I could see you had something to say there.
I just think it's fucking 2024.
Yeah.
How are we even having these problems? How are we going backwards?
But with the economy
and becoming.
Can I take
course,
that point? So obviously in Islam, yes, you're supposed to welcome the foreigner. You're supposed to feed them, give them water if they need water. But that was created in an environment with a much, much lower population. How many foreigners were you likely to meet when that was developed as a philosophy? You know, it would be a rare thing. In the world now, we've got, back then it would have been probably 500 million people. We're now just over 8 billion people in the world. And the ability to move is so much greater than it was back then. I think it's a great idea. And I always say to, like, when people say, oh, Muslims are dangerous, I'm like, yeah, Muslims are really dangerous because they'll feed you to death. If you go around, they won't stop feeding you. They're definitely dangerous. But that's because people do carry a vision of Islam and a vision of Muslims in their head that they've gotten not from reality. So at that side of Islam, I think it's great. That's been my experience of it, very, very welcoming. But does that personal philosophy translate to a political policy? I'm not sure it does in the modern world.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think also what we're seeing in terms of the trouble up and down the country, I think a lot of it is from the back end of the general election campaign, where there was a sudden announcement from the Reform Party that they'd stand. And then all of a sudden, the media just started pushing. Immigration. So I don't want to discount anybody's worries that they have about immigration. However, personally, on a personal level, how much and I'm not defending illegal immigration, but how much has illegal immigration really, really impacted you and your life? I know people are going to say, well, actually, it's a general thing. It's bringing society down in general. But you as a person, has it really, really impacted your life as a person? Maybe it has. Maybe it hasn't. But
healthcare-wise, massively. When I see family and friends who were sitting in hospital corridors for days on end.
Is that really down to immigration?
I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying.
I think there are people out there who want to run the NHS into the ground.
Of course.
I agree with that.
I think that's ideological.
I agree with agendas, but I also agree that.
So imagine. Sorry.
I agree with the agenda side of things, but I also disagree that the amount of it's just people. It's just an amount of people in one place is going to cause a weight of need and of
stress.
It's just gonna happen. It just seems logical to me that.
So just back to the NHS point. So imagine if the same people who were responsible for running the NHS into the ground then came out and set a narrative through their media wings, blaming it all on immigration. Wouldn't that be convenient?
I'm just talking about numbers. I'm not talking about anything else other than numbers.
Even in numbers. So I was in Qatar recently. You know what population of Qatar is local nationals? I think
very
it's
small.
Between 5 and 10%. Yeah. Are we going to put a percentage to this? How much immigration is too much? Is it 5%? 10%?
But people should, that answer should be transparent. It should be a transparent answer.
Can I just comment
and
on the NHS?
Don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing for unlimited immigration.
No,
you're right as well.
No, I think there's a really good point that you're making, and it ties in with something you said. Go ahead, Simon.
I just wanted to add on to the end of what we were saying about the NHS here. Again, referring to the bus again, we were supposed to have an extra £350 million. And then during the COVID crisis, they're not paying the nurses and they're encouraging people to hang out the window on a Tuesday and clap for them.
Yeah.
And then forward, X amount of time, they're siphoning off billions of pounds to their donors.
Excellent point.
Do you know what I mean?
Excellent point. And I think when you were speaking before about the bus, it reminded me of the Brexit times. And I just remember thinking, if it was a fight, the Brexiteers smashed the Remainers when it came to marketing. And marketing is a way of spinning narratives. Mm-hmm. So to your point, I don't know as an individual whether it's illegal immigration that's causing these problems. The conspiracy theorist in me, Tony, says maybe the system's collapsing for various reasons, and they can't tell you. So they'll go, you know who's doing this? It's them. It could be a distraction.
Of course, I understand that.
Maybe the
We should have transparency,
maybe
as you said.
But at
maybe
the
the
same
collapse
time-
has been manufactured for ideological reasons, and there are people
We
out
can't
there.
all be conspiracy theorists. This is going to turn into a David
I do not know. And I believe in divide and conquer is a massive play. But at the same time, unless there's transparency and unless the media is taken into account for the way they spin things, like the government's got power, the government can tell the media. So someone is directing this narrative.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's a true narrative or whether it's a false narrative, it's a narrative that people believe in. And unless the powers that be want to decide that they want to try and calm the waters.
But what
it's within their powers to do that, but maybe they don't want to do that.
Yeah, but people are seeing 10-second clips and
course.
running with it.
Yeah.
Like we seen that incident with the police in the airport. There was outrage for the police done this and the police done that.
Sorry.
When the full video come up,
It was different.
But people might not know that, Jacob. Could you pull up the police Manchester Airport police assault? So what we first saw for non-UK people was a policeman throwing a youngish-looking lad to the floor and kicking him in the head, and we all went, "Oh, that's terrible, police brutality." And then the longer piece came out a week later. Maybe 7 days later,
7 days
where
later.
we see the young lad actually breaking a female police officer's nose. So this is what we first saw, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. So we saw that, and because of the editing of the clip, we went, wow, that's outrageous police brutality and clearly an act of racism. Then when the longer clip comes out, we see the young man, I think in the blue, he'd right hooked a much smaller female officer right in the face and broken her nose. And the policeman was responding to that. So to Abdullah's point, we get these edited clips, these micro moments bereft of context. You see it all over Instagram and TikTok, and people jump forward with their opinion, but without seeing what's happened 10 minutes before and 10 minutes afterwards, it's almost impossible to make a reasonable conclusion. But you've raised social media a couple of times now, and I agree with you. I think it is actually having a very damaging effect because it encourages and rewards that immediate emotional response. What's your opinion on this? So it entrains you to go stimulus response rapidly instead of just going, there's the stimulus. What am I looking at here? And just taking a minute to, what have you pulled up for us? Oh yeah, go on. There's the man in blue who's kicked in the head, who's being restrained.
Oh, it's this guy who's getting.
And then you see the man in blue punching the female officer.
The blue one and blue gets
Two
tasered,
female
doesn't
officers.
it?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
There we go. There's the kick to the head.
Yeah.
Now, he then goes on to stamp on him, which just as a point of contention, we shouldn't do that. Because for anybody, no stamping on heads and necks break. But you could see that there was a degree of violence that was justified when you see the longer clip. And I think your point about social media is an important one in the
because
conversation.
that 10-second clips that they're getting, people are running with it.
Yeah.
And it's getting spread millions all around the world straight away.
Yeah.
So in the first week, the police were the villains. A week later, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
When they got the full picture.
Yeah.
But then some people can see the truth and still deny it and still say, no, this is wrong. And that's the problem we're having now.
And in fairness, there was protest about that video, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what city was it in? There was major protests.
Yeah, Manchester.
So again, what I'm trying to say to you is,
I've had access to the full context even before that. Do you know why the police even approached him in the first place?
no.
See, we don't know the story.
Yeah.
But I've been seeing lots of false narratives again pushed online. Oh, they asked his mother to be searched in the airport and she refused. No, rubbish.
Nothing.
What it was his mother was racially abused by, ironically, an Arab on the aeroplane, and then the son punched.
I cannot believe an Arab man.
No, but would you see? We need the full. Even that is not the full story.
Yeah.
And then the son, the guy in blue who went crazy, he went fits of rage, and then he punched the guy who abused his mum.
Right.
And then the police were approaching him at the car park ticket machine. So there's lots going on. So could
But
be
it
taken
equally
on that.
shows,
That obviously incident.
What's that?
but it equally shows the dangers, doesn't it? Sorry.
So you've had that incident, and then a couple of weeks later, you've had the Southport incident.
That's what I'm saying, and both communities have erupted with upset, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been proven.
You said this before. It's a trigger, isn't it?
Yeah.
Regardless of what information it's based on, it is triggering something what's already there and what's been building up.
And I think there's crossover between the incidents. I don't know how long that went on for, but maybe that young man feels like his mother has been disrespected. If any of us here in that same situation, he shouldn't have punched the police. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you hit certain triggers in human psychology and we go back to basics. And that's what worries me about this, because if money stays low and violence gets higher, people will tribalize, we get more primitive. And then it's just like a human software fault. It's an aesthetic, because you're seeing people's genetic similarity by how they look. So at the base, if you start responding primally, you go, well, he's got blue eyes, I've got blue eyes. We're from the same gene pool. If I go primal, it doesn't matter if he's a bad man. When things get really bad, the money's really low, things are really wretched, and the violence is really high, that's how the division goes. We lose the human side of ourselves and start using that mammalian reptilian brain. You made a point about Liverpool before. And I do think it's a special place. I do think it's different. In many ways, it's the canary in the coal mine, because if Liverpool starts moving in a certain direction, then that means the rest of the country is definitely going that way. If I hear people in Liverpool saying things that are typically more right-wing sort of talking points, I'm like, this is worrying now. This is not a good. I mean, at least in all our lifetimes, it's always, I think, since the 19, we need Lawrence Westgaff for this. I'll ask him next time. I think since the late 1800s, it's been left-leaning. I think that's what Lawrence told me.
What's your class as right-wing now? Because I'm even getting labelled right-wing now because I'm disagreeing with mass immigration.
You are white, and so you are right-wing. Just
No, but I mean, the problem is that
You're not far wrong.
labels get
It's not
thrown
right-wing, it's not far
around.
wrong.
Labels get thrown around like confetti nowadays.
Absolutely.
My history would dictate and decide that is the total and was the opposite of my life history. Do you know what I mean? But I have to suck that up because I'm a white male, so I've got to suck that up that I'm a far right activist because I speak, in my opinion, honestly and from the heart. So, but again, people are scared of speaking because they feel like
We live in a world where
But
we
then
can't
there's
disagree.
people who are probably there's probably a small minority of people who are so that they don't care about the label because they're just entrenched in their mindset anyway. No label's going to affect them or upset them. The labels affect the people and upset the people who know they don't live like that, I suppose. I don't know if it makes any sense.
I think
Labels are just getting lashed around like confetti.
I think being
nowadays.
called a racist is not far off being called a paedophile or a grass.
It's a slur.
It's
to
a
shut you up.
bad
It's
sl-
to slap you down and shut
Yeah,
you up.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
What was the point you were making there, Mark?
We can't say nothing.
Yeah.
No, you can. It's,
We live in a world now where we can't say nothing without offending someone. That's my view.
Absolutely.
You know, there was a
Absolutely.
protest on Saturday where two protests. We were speaking. You know, there's a lot of misinformation in the middle, and this is my view. But there was two protests. One, a Save the Kids protest, peaceful protest, and then an anti-fascist. You know, fighting for peace. They were actually brought together, and the fact of violence.
It was the police that brought them together to
There's
provoke them.
videos. The police. So Tony, we were there, weren't we? Yeah. The police actually led them
It was
down
done.
to Save the Kids protest, which again through social media, there was information going around that it was a right wing. It was actually, you know, I'm not going to use accurate statistics, but from being there, I probably said 80% Scouse mums and dads.
So there's a difference. We had this conversation in the cafe, didn't we? You say concerned parents. That has one emotional impact on me as a reader. Right-wing thugs. And
There was right-wing thugs there, 100%.
There were some,
There were right-wing
but the majority
thugs, yeah.
was...
We're concerned parents.
We're just concerned parents. Cheers. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a stupid question now. Why is it a problem if you're not allowed to voice your concerns? What's wrong with that?
Major frustration.
Okay.
Lack of communication
Okay.
between people,
Yeah.
which I think is one of the biggest issues. Lack of clarity.
So we were talking about
Misinformation.
misinformation
Yeah, of
flies,
course, yeah.
suspicion goes up because you can't talk. And then I think it's back to the point that we made earlier. It's humiliating. And humiliation leads to violence.
Yeah.
If you're humiliated, you've got to redress it.
People just let their thoughts manifest in their mind until they come to the worst conclusion that it is, and then boom, problems.
And also pride.
Pride.
Yeah.
I think a good thing, which would probably be nice to touch on, is the fact that even after all of this, our own kids have just trashed our own city. You know,
And what was that about?
Anger, frustration.
No direction, no role models. You know, even if you had to look at things like social media again, kids now are coming home from I work around, you know, my passion is kids. I've run a program in schools for the best part of 5 years, trying to educate kids and, you know, be the role model, which maybe I didn't feel I had when I was younger. And now I think it's even worse for the kids. But, you know, kids are coming home from school, there's even normal households, and they're on phones, they're eating fucking copious amounts of fucking sugar.
Yeah.
You know, even if you look at the kids who are living in basically survival, the parents can't pay the bills, they're going out stealing and robbing from a very early age. You know, we've got to look at our own kids and ask ourselves in our own, because for me, I don't see an immediate solution, but the way I'm looking at it now, even after Saturday, I'm seeing mass gatherings of people. It's too easy for it to be manipulated and for it to go the wrong way. But what can we do ourselves in our own communities, men like us and women as well, strong women? How can we fix the solution in our own areas? How can we bring these kids together in community back? Because there's no sense of community. The sense of community in our day and age now, it's dead.
It's good, yeah.
It's people like yourself and you know, even me.
I think gyms are our community, no?
Gyms are mine in your community, but not everyone's into the gym. So it's like my
Versus
daughter's
snooker
dance
halls,
school.
versus the other stuff,
That's
yeah.
her community.
Yeah.
Multicultural.
But what about the kids who are living in the roughest areas where they haven't got parents who are going to take them to these places?
See, the thing is, Mark, a lot of the kids, it was kids during the video that were trashing the place. There's a lot of adults too, but there's mostly kids. This was happening at 1 a.m. Where was the parents?
Yeah.
Where's the guidance?
And you've got to look at, we're all products to a certain degree of our environment.
Yeah.
Well, who controls the environment? For me, it's as simple as that's the government.
Yeah.
The government are creating these conditions and a lot of these problems, or the problems are there in the government in 2024 haven't got the fucking brains to solve these problems. There's no order and it's not being managed. However you want to...
Sorry, mate. So sometimes it's not by design, is it? It can be by neglect as well. And I think there's a sense, I remember the London riots were kicking off. I was like, I think these kids just feel like alienated. It's
The
just
kids are lost.
alienation.
Mate.
Do you remember the word manage decline?
Manage decline.
Thatcher's word, manage.
Yeah.
But you're going to manage decline Liverpool in a managed way.
Yeah.
And you tried to.
Yeah.
But this
Well,
that
them
was
poor
in the
kids, they're
80s,
going to
we're
get criminal
talking.
records now and then their life's finished.
The what, sorry?
They're going to get criminal records at an early age, and that's the down slope.
Yeah.
They know the environment to create in order to create these problems. Like a little perfect storm going on for them, isn't it? And maybe that's what they want. Maybe this is probably what they don't want. Do you know what I mean? But to see it now.
We've got our own, I think mine and Tony's views, probably a lot of our views around here are all the same. Can we really be, no, I've been very naive. I've learnt a lot about myself over the last few days. But can we be naive enough to believe that this whole thing is an accident?
I think it's been brewing for far too many years. You know,
Brewing how though? And for what reasons?
From starting, like I said before, from Brexit to the incidents that's been happening, it's just been, people have just been getting negative news, negative, and nothing's getting done about it. So people are naturally going to get angry, and eventually they're going to attack.
That's a really good point. And to your point, I'd actually just like to ask, and I want to go around the table for this. If there's a sliding scale where it's complete chaos and nobody's in charge, to full-blown conspiracy, these things are being engineered, I'd like to know where you stand on it. Abdullah, where do you stand on that scale?
The middle.
The middle?
Yeah.
The middle. Okay, so some of it is incidental,
I'll sit on the
and
fence.
some of it is opportunistic.
Yeah.
We can use this. What do you think, Adam?
I think with the organisation of the protests and marches, I don't think it's an organic grassroots movement.
You don't.
I see definite signs of top-down intervention. In terms of the people who are being involved, I think the majority of them are just regular, genuine people who are being dragged into it. That does pose a lot of questions, which I don't have the answers to. Some of those questions will be, so who exactly is behind this pulling the strings? And if I'm honest, I don't have the answer, but I'm saying I'm seeing signs of top-down intervention.
And I think that's a bit of a...
The other question is, what do they have to benefit from this? And
which is fine, but it's almost like a dialectic trap, isn't it? Because if you say, well, I think this is organised, I can go, well, who and for what purpose? No, let's just stick with this. I'm seeing indications that this is organised. For me, I'm full-blown conspiracy theorist. I think sometimes people get the MK Ultra routine and they're brainwashed into doing things that they otherwise wouldn't want to do. I'm not saying this attack is an example of that.
Through COVID how easy that is.
It can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. So I'm very much on the side of things being... There is chaos. We know there's chaos. I mean, we work nightclubs. Things happen, shit happens, and it's weird. So there's always a gap for that. But I think a lot of it is engineered. Tony, where do you stand on that?
5% psychopaths, 95% good humans, good and evil. That's my opinion.
So,
I tend to lean more with your opinion, to be honest with you. I think like what you were explaining earlier was just an example of that. You know, you had the two groups and it was manufactured for them to be in the same place at the same time. Again, like a lot of the sort of language that's being used in mainstream media, which you didn't used to hear, it's quite clear what these people are asking and saying. Do you know what I mean? It's they're clearly stoking up, racial division.
They're stoking up racial division.
The media.
And the Tony divide and conquer, 5% evil, 95% fucking good human beings, and at the minute, the 5% are winning.
There's many theories. Isn't there? I mean, they say
they get the limelight. All the cameras, they don't want to film you and your peaceful guys who are there for your genuine cause. They want to see the Scouser go and knock the police officer off his bike.
Two groups of people, both with 90%, 80%, 90% with the same intentions. If we're going to use that ratio, actually arguing with each other. You've got a group of people calling another group of people who 80% say concerned for their own kids and their own families and are lost and looking for solutions and answers, are getting called racist, Nazi, scum. And you've got people on this side using racial abuse, and it's like, that the thing I keep seeing going around, the jar full of ants.
Yeah.
Who's shaking the jar? And for me, that's the question. Who's actually shaking the jar?
But you know what, Mark? If I didn't see your video and I messaged you before you even went to the thing, if I didn't see that, maybe, and I just seen a clip of what's going on and Mark's involved, I might have seen you a different way. But because I watched your video and I knew, and you said all race, all religions, everyone's welcome, and we had that interaction, I messaged you. If I did not see that, I'm saying someone who doesn't know you.
I've gone from being like a popular, and this isn't about me, by the way, but from being a popular, loved fucking member. I'll do a lot in the community, and I do. To genuine good people hating me the last few days.
Because of misinformation.
Because of misinformation, people who don't really know me as well as you do, or Tony and things. And if I was sitting in their shoes on their sofa in their house, I'd probably be thinking the same thing as what they are. And that's, I'm seeing that
because
first.
Somebody can get your video and cut off certain things, and now you've said something completely different.
But I've made mistakes because I could have been more clear. I was emotional.
But you was clear.
Off the fact the back of my daughter going to dance and all these other things, was I thinking straight over?
No, but you was clear because I messaged you.
Yeah, but you know me. But people who don't know me,
true. Can I just comment on what you've just said then? I'm telling you, it takes a big man to say what you just said there. That's...
to be honest.
For all your followers, they need to realise that they've got a wise man leading them, honestly.
100%.
For you to, on a podcast, which is going to be broadcast on YouTube, for you to have the courage. A lot of people see it as a weakness. No, it's strength.
Vulnerability.
If you can start there, and maybe I should have done things differently. That you've got my respect, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark's not far right, he's not far wrong.
I know what I am. That's the truth. I'm the same as everyone. I'm a bit confused, but
it's sad, isn't it? I think, in a way, you appreciated the reassurance and you need the reassurance, and I think that's it's like the human software fault. We're very visual creatures, so I see you I see the skin color, I see the bone structure, I see the way you're dressed, and then a series of assumptions come first. And we spoke about this earlier. You're under pressure as Muslims to say, we think this is wrong. Now, me personally, I would get very angry because I would be like, why are you asking me to say that something that is clearly fucking evil is evil? Are you dumb? Do you think I'm sat at home going, ha ha ha, this is great? It's that then leads to humiliation, and humiliation leads to frustration. But sometimes you do have to give the reassurance. You know, like, so you'll see white liberals doing it. I'm not racist, and this weird virtue signaling thing. But sometimes unfortunately, it's necessary, isn't it? Because they don't know. They might look at me and go, he's got the sides of his head shaved. He looks a bit like Himmler. So then I have to say...
Well, you know the value Scousers have been given in Britain for the last 30, 40,
Oh,
50.
the great value.
But what I mean is you feel like you've got to defend yourself at times for being a thief or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a microcosm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of like what you suffer as a Scouse in the greater...
hierarchy.
Again, that's an opinion held by people that have been to Liverpool.
What I'm saying to you is that it's like the micro to the macro, isn't it? But we all suffer it in different ways, I suppose. You want to use the word suffer.
But Tony, what about being a Muslim Scouser?
What I mean is, though,
double down. There you go.
All I'm saying is good men coming together like us is the start of something positive, I believe.
What is the solution?
I hope it leads to something more.
That's it. We're into the last 17 minutes. So solutions.
In terms of the solution, I don't even know. When you hear these people saying we want our country back, what does that mean? What do you want? Do you know what I mean?
Have an opportunity, maybe start with Abdul.
Yeah.
What's
Go around the table.
I think do it the right way. Sit down with your local MPs and see what they can do and what's going on, and get more information about them, because we don't even know what's going on. You know, with these immigrations, can they be stopped? Can the borders be stopped? We don't even know any of this. So maybe I'm sitting down with some of the local MPs and getting them to answer questions, because they should be answering the questions, not us.
Yeah.
I think this is part of it, what we're doing right now. Sitting down, talking, listening to each other.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's learnt some amazing things about other people, and I certainly have. And now I'll go back to my community and I'll communicate that, pass it down, and I'm sure each person's going to go back. And I think the summary of this get together is I think Scousers are unique, and if anybody out there is after trouble and trying to cause trouble here, the Scousers are onto you.
Yeah.
They're onto you. They're not going to let it happen.
Tony.
What I think the solutions are.
Yes.
I think, me personally, I'll just crack on as I do in the communities that I work in, and in the environments I work in the communities, I should say. I believe the work I do as a coach and the work I do with the people in society who are basically ignored. I think that's my sort of contribution to creating a better community, better world. I think you can only do what you can do. I'm not looking to save the world, but I am good at assisting others, and that's what I'll continue to do as my part of the process.
I think the most important word there is community, really. You know, it's just like a perfect example when the wall got kicked down outside the mosque there. Look at it, the community were the people that put things back together. So it's really about sort of having those sort of community relations and creating a sense of cohesion between everybody that's living together.
Yeah.
I think the solution is going to come in reverse. It's going to come from the likes of this, from people like us, all the way back up to the top. That's the only way I can see that happening. And my view, right the way through, that can only happen if enough of us come together, and if enough of us can actually see through what's going on at this moment in time. It is literally divide, separate, create as much stress, and you know, and that's what the consequences of what we're experiencing now. Everybody's got to come together regardless of skin colour, culture, background. If enough normal everyday people like us start to speak and unite, then that's the only way we'll solve the problem. If we can't solve it that way, it's not going to get solved.
No.
I just want to steel man what you just said by just saying there needs to be a will to do that. We have to insist as hard for order and community and to have a dialectic. I'm a big believer in just talking. Obviously, with a background in therapy, of course I am. But I think philosophically, you bring two ideas together, you have your thesis, you have your antithesis, you work together and you have a synthesis. But it can't be done anymore. We don't have time to be like, oh yeah, it's nice to be nice. We have to insist. No, we're not going to fall for the trap. We're not going to fall for the division, and we're going to push back. And we're going to say, no, I'm not taking this narrative about Muslims, or I'm not taking this narrative about this group or that group. I'm going to push back. I'm going to go and speak to that group and look at somebody in the eye, as we said before. But be able to look them in the eye and say, what's in this person? Because we all carry a map of reality in our heads, but it doesn't match reality. And I understand for the people who they're terrified. And it's the fear of the unknown that they see something that they don't know and they don't understand, and they carry, like I said before, like the Muslim in your head versus just people who are followers of a religion. That's the difference. But insisting on it, what I would claim is, in the culture that we have now, the coordinates we have now, you're not really allowed to. You're allowed to ask, but not insist. And I think we have to be strong, and we have to say, no, we're pushing back against this narrative. This is evil. And we should call evil evil. We should be judgmental, because you're not supposed to judge now. You're not supposed to have any boundaries or anything. The cultural coordinates are no judgment, no boundaries. It's a free-for-all. Push back. Go, no, it's okay to have boundaries. It's good to have order. It's good to have boundaries. It's good to have a schedule. These kids, they might not like gym culture. Push them to the gym. Push them to the gym. Of course, you don't like it because you're not fit.
It's an expression of the government.
Yeah.
There's no order and no logic.
Chaos.
It's chaos, and that's what we're seeing through.
And most
kids
living in
by
fear, I believe. Most people are living in.
Tony, we're all living in fear.
No,
We're all here today because we're all living in.
But most
in
people
fear.
are living in fear with the inability to express it. We're expressing our
channel it,
fears.
yeah.
We're expressing our vulnerabilities because we feel like that's a way forward for something more positive.
I think that's what the
it is.
protest really. That's what when you think about, that's what they're about in a controlled manner. But they're there for us to be able to voice our opinions in a safe way. But what I've realised over the weekend is it's very easy for that to be infiltrated and be twisted and
You get
manipulated.
used.
Yeah.
You get
I've seen it with
used.
my own eyes.
Yeah.
And maybe
social media is the key. Maybe grassroots community. Everybody who's in a position to do so, just chipping in and doing a bit.
100%.
Maybe they should do this. If they can find a way, because if you're out on the street and there's protests and I don't like your protest, I can send a few lads in who look like you, who sound like you, and then just wind everybody up. It's easy for protests to descend into violence because of the chaos that's there. But if you're just sat around a table, and you don't need to be in a studio to do it, everybody's got the tech now, you can just use your phones. It's very hard. It would be very hard to spin this conversation the wrong way. Very hard.
Media is being used against us. The technology is being used against us because we don't know how to manage it. We need to learn how to manage it and use it for good.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be beneficial if the country as a whole had a stronger vision for itself and was like, this is what this country stands for, these are the principles of the country, and if you're here, you must align with these principles, which includes pushing back against divisiveness, pushing back against chaos, and having communities? Do you think that would help? Because it feels like the country doesn't really have a vision for itself. Do you think that would help?
100%.
Definitely.
I think we had there's a clear path in what was happening with immigration, with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you also got to remember, we just changed governments, 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is what the Tories have left us with.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I mean, I'm sure we all have seen posts here and people are like, oh, okay, what are you going to do about it? It's like, it's been here for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
This is like 14 years in the making.
Yeah. And historically, the Tories have always been bad to Liverpool, haven't they?
Yeah, they hate Liverpool.
Yeah, they hate Liverpool. So
Do you believe in this Labour government anymore, though?
I'm not saying that I do, but I'm just saying it's unfair to it's like.
So we haven't got a choice.
So we are moving towards the end, gentlemen. It's been a very useful discussion. I've learned a lot. So I'm going to go around the table and just offer people a chance to get there. Yeah, start that way. give people there so you can see you want to set your thoughts
I
together.
want to think about it, yeah.
Maybe you want to look at, see what other people have said. So
Start copying Mark.
closing thoughts. Mark, we'll go with you first, mate.
I think what Tony said, it's a case of, I know I've just got to do what I do, what are my strengths, and The centre is kind of trying to bring people together and coaching in the schools, the kids. And like I've always had like I say, it's solution-based thinking. For me, it's like at the minute everyone's focusing on the actual issues and they're expressing themselves through anger and arguing. And like we've got to focus on what's the solution. What how do we get to the outcome? What we need. If we carry on fighting with each other, this is very, very simple. If we all carry on fucking fighting with each other and battling, we're not going to get nowhere. It's like, I know I can coach in the schools and the other stuff I can do. I've got to focus on that, me. Again, no one man can save the world and solve all the problems. But I just think everyone's got to have a look at themselves and say, can I be doing more in my community to help the people around me, not just myself?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice to see more of that. Shai?
Yeah, I mean, historically, the Great Britain, if you want to call it great, has had ties with other countries all over the world, and which has led to sort of the cultural richness that we see. So
you're for bringing back colonial times.
not talking
Edit that. Thank you, Simon. I agree.
Yes,
Bring back the Great British Navy.
But yeah, no, I mean, there just has to be some legislation and policies in check, and there needs to be some sort of focus on integration rather than division.
Agreed. Tony?
What is this, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts, mate?
I just think that the more things like this can happen between good people who are led by goodwill rather than trying to be a do-gooder type of thing, you know. There's a lot of do-gooders out there, but their actions, in my opinion, can be weak. The words can be strong, but I think people need to take stronger actions with it, like Mark said, within the communities. Like we've all proven to our lives, I believe. We're there to make others' lives better by the actions that we take in our communities, by the things that we do. We all do that, I know, because these are all my friends, so I know what we do separately. And I think, again, if you just focus on the world around you rather than trying to save the whole world, I think that can have a greater impact.
Adam?
So taking things back to where we started, we were talking about Southport, and then we saw the mosque attacked. And then a few days later, we had a protest outside our mosque. What we decided to do on that day, and some people were opposed to it, some people were a bit suspicious of what we were saying. We decided to do something radical. We decided to cook food in the kitchen, to walk over, to speak to the protesters, not just to speak to them, to listen to them. By the end of it, we were eating food together, hugging each other, shaking hands, exchanging phone details. And a lot of those people who came to protest against the mosque were saying to me genuinely that we'd love to come back into your mosque sometime and continue these discussions. So I think it needs that brave leadership in times of trouble, people to step forward. And honestly, just today with you guys, I've been really inspired by, and the irony is, it's like, people at the other side, you know, people from, and I'm listening to you, and this is the key. Come together, listen to each other.
Human to human contact and less social media.
Yeah, don't get me started. Yeah, so from what Adam said and what Mark said, why not do something with maybe half a day where people can come to the mosque, because it's unknown. They don't know what's, the views are until maybe they can come to the mosque and have a, and then maybe some people from the mosque can go and train in Tony's gym. And the only way people are going to understand each other is by being around each other and understanding from each other. Otherwise, it's not... the
divide's always going to be there, isn't it?
Yeah, the divide's going to be there. But a lot of people in the mosque may feel they can't go to the gym because of what's going on right now.
Not safe,
There may be some people that are in the gym that don't know what's going on in the mosque and maybe want to learn more about the mosque. So maybe doing something combined after today. Don't know what you think, but
trust me, Ro, there's a lot of people from the mosque at our gym. Ours is 50-50.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty optimistic, because even though there is a lot of division, I think the solutions to the division are simple ones. Like if you train together, you go for a walk together, you chat together, food helps. I mean, that's like a basic human need. You can always link on the basic human needs. You can eat together, you can try out each other's food, and you can bond over that. But face-to-face contact, don't spend too much time online. Don't spend too much time in the echo chambers. You're probably talking to psychopaths. Or you mentioned before, like 5% bad people, 95% good. Oh, that's strange that the clinical literature confirms that psychopathy pops up in 4 to 5% of the population.
And you know, mental health is a big thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people with mental health. This cannot be good for the health right now.
It's
No.
getting worse, trust me.
Yeah.
It's getting so much worse through technology. Again,
Yeah, abuse.
devices. The world's moving faster than we're designed to be able to adapt and evolve.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a massive role in, especially with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of things going around, videos of 80s and 90s upbringing. And I'm actually glad I can get to speak about this because this is something which, like, you know, I've been sent videos of the way we were raised. Fucking riding bikes, playing in the streets. You come in when the fucking, you know, I think most people will have seen it. When the
lights,
street lights come on,
lights,
that's when it's time to come in.
Cabs.
And everyone feels sad. I'm looking at, like, everyone putting broken hearts.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't realise what's actually, how much things are changing. It's like, why is everyone putting pictures of broken hearts when they're seeing, you know, we should be evolving as people.
Yeah.
And life should be becoming better for our kids. And we're looking at the way we were raised and comparing it to the way kids are being raised now. And we're sad.
Yeah.
How do we fix that?
I think what it's an interesting point. There's an assumption that technological progress is always linear and it's always forward, and it's not. And technological progress always leads to human progress, and it doesn't. And clearly we're seeing
doing
that
the
now.
opposite.
It's actually doing the opposite. It's making people very, very sick. We are evolved to be around each other. We're tribal creatures. We must be in contact with each other. There's things that we get at the unconscious level when you just sat in the same room as people. There's things that you get at the spiritual, psychological, emotional level. All of that is rinsed and bleached out when it's social media contact. The written word is always assumed to have more implicit aggression than when it's spoken by the human voice. Anything else to add, chaps, before I wrap?
No, it's been a great.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for organising this, Tony.
Thanks, Tom.
Ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And we look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Cheers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, amazing, man.
Thank you.
Huh?
Cheers.
Maybe we just do a
Thank
pass.
you.
What's going on here?